Imagine being in a tense moment where your heart is racing, and just when you think all is lost, you find courage in the most unexpected place. Ever been underestimated by someone, not knowing the quiet strength you carry within? This is the kind of story that will make you see resilience in a new light. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and be sure to hit subscribe for more inspiring stories like this. Welcome to Motivation for Success, the channel dedicated to stories of resilience, hope, and the incredible power of standing your ground. If you're drawn to tales that celebrate the inner strength we all have, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more uplifting stories every day. Now, let's get into today's story. It began on a mild Saturday evening at Northcrest Park, a sprawling green space just on the outskirts of a town simply known as Oakview. Families filled the park, children laughed as they chased soccer balls across the grass, and teenagers lounged on benches, lost in their own digital worlds. The sun cast a warm, golden glow across the field, reflecting off the leaves of the old oak trees that gave the park its signature charm. Seated beneath one of those tall oaks was Adrian Brooke, a reserved 16-year-old with a contemplative air. While the world around him was in constant motion, Adrian remained steady, his gaze occasionally drifting from the pages of the book he was reading to the soccer field. He was waiting for his younger brother, Toby, who was finishing up practice with his local team. Adrian's promise to their mom was simple: don't head home without Toby. Adrian's attire set him apart from most teenagers in the park. He wore a neatly pressed black suit, a crisp white shirt, and polished shoes. He'd come straight from a school function, and though he looked a bit formal for a casual weekend outing, he seemed perfectly at ease. If any of the families or teenagers around him gave him curious glances, he didn't appear to notice. The serenity of the scene shattered abruptly when the sound of roaring engines filled the air. A group of motorcyclists emerged from the street adjacent to the soccer field. Their leather jackets and dark jeans caught the last rays of the sun, making them look like silhouettes against the backdrop of the park's gentle glow. In many places, motorcyclists are just passers-by, loud, but otherwise harmless. Tonight, however, was different. Instead of continuing down the road, they veered off into the park's small lot and shut off their bikes. Adrian's eyes flickered to these newcomers. There were 5 of them in total, each with an air of confidence bordering on menace. Their boots crunched on the gravel walkway, and they spoke in low tones. At first, Adrian tried to ignore the uneasy feeling pooling in his stomach. He focused on the soccer field where Toby was still running drills. But even from a distance, Adrian sensed the bikers' attention shift in his direction. One of the bikers, a stocky man with a shaved head and a jagged scar across his cheek, seemed to spot Adrian immediately. The rest of the group followed his line of sight, forming a loose huddle before they started walking toward the oak tree where Adrian sat. The man's heavy steps pressed into the ground with deliberate force. Adrian glanced up, noticing their purposeful approach. A wave of caution washed over him, but he kept his composure. He quietly closed the book he'd been reading and set it on the bench beside him. His mother's voice echoed in his mind, "Never let them see you sweat." "What are you doing here, kid?" the stocky biker asked in a gravelly voice. The question hung in the air, charged and direct. "I'm waiting for my brother," Adrian replied, speaking clearly. He didn't avert his gaze. He'd learned early in life the importance of looking people in the eye. A smirk tugged at the corners of the biker's mouth, and he exchanged a silent glance with his friends. "This doesn't look like your kind of place," he continued, his tone dripping with condescension. Adrian felt his jaw tighten. He forced himself to remain polite. "It's a public park," he responded, each word measured. The biker's smirk vanished, replaced by a simmering annoyance. "Got a smart mouth, huh?" He stepped closer. 2 of his companions fanned out, forming a half-circle around Adrian. Though families still roamed the park, nobody seemed to notice the subtle standoff happening beneath the oak tree. Everyone's attention was on the soccer practice, where the final whistle was about to blow. Adrian's mind raced. He thought about Toby, who could run into this scene at any moment. He also recalled his years of karate training, how he was taught that true discipline meant avoiding a fight if at all possible. If these bikers intended to start trouble, Adrian would have to rely on both his composure and his skill. "Look," Adrian said evenly, "I'm not looking for a problem. I just want to pick up my brother and head home." The stocky biker leaned in, the smell of leather and stale cigarette smoke wafting in the air. "Trouble? Who said anything about trouble?" he asked, voice low and mocking. Before Adrian could respond, a new voice cut through the tension. "Leave him alone." Adrian's eyes darted to see Toby standing a short distance away. His cheeks were still flushed from soccer practice, and he was clutching a ball under one arm. Despite the tremble in his voice, Toby looked more brave than any 10-year-old should have to be in that moment. "Toby, stay back," Adrian warned, his tone urgent. The last thing he wanted was for his younger brother to get involved. "Is that your little bro?" one of the bikers sneered, sliding a fingerless gloved hand in Toby's direction. "Maybe. We should teach you both a lesson." A resolve stirred within Adrian, stronger than fear. He stood slowly, placing himself between Toby and the bikers. Every muscle in his body felt coiled, like a spring ready to unleash, but his face betrayed none of his anxiety. "Don't touch him," Adrian said. His voice was quiet yet carried a firmness that even the bikers could not ignore. The stocky man's grin returned. "Look at this. The kid thinks he's a tough guy." Adrian didn't move. His hands remained at his sides, but his stance widened slightly, a subtle shift that signaled preparation. If these men were determined to instigate violence, Adrian knew he'd have to use what he'd learned in countless training sessions, and, more importantly, the mental discipline that came along with it. "What's the matter, huh?" the biker leader taunted, stepping forward. "You scared?" Adrian took a slow breath. Fear wasn't the issue, time was. How long before Toby ran for help? How long before another parent noticed? He repeated a mantra in his head: stay calm. Observe. Decide. He could see the other bikers flanking him, their eyes filled with cruel anticipation. They clearly wanted him to break first. When Adrian didn't budge, the stocky biker reached out with one hand in a shove meant to knock the teenager off his feet. But the moment the biker's hand lunged forward, Adrian pivoted on the ball of his foot, allowing the push to miss its mark. In one fluid motion, he turned the biker's wrist away, forcing him to stumble. "What?" The biker's expletive-laced surprise was cut short by a pained grimace. Adrian released him quickly, maintaining a balanced posture. "I warned you," Adrian said softly. His voice, calm and steady, fueled the biker's fury. Two of them rushed at him in unison. One swung a wide punch, but Adrian ducked, stepping sideways in a measured, practiced movement. He struck the attacker's torso with the heel of his palm, knocking the man backward. The second biker came at him from behind, but Adrian spun swiftly, delivering a precise side kick to the man's knee. A choked gasp escaped the biker's lips as he collapsed. The leader, regaining his balance, launched himself at Adrian like a raging bull. Though bigger and heavier, his moves were sloppy with anger. Adrian evaded, each dodge carefully placing him out of harm's way. The man swung wildly, once, twice, 3 times. Each blow missed its intended target as Adrian harnessed the discipline hammered into him by years of martial arts training. By now, a few parents had begun to notice the altercation. Several onlookers gathered, uncertain at first whether this was a choreographed demonstration or real danger. A wave of unease rippled through the crowd as it became clear that these bikers were not playing around. Somebody started recording on a phone. Murmurs of concern spread. Should we call the police? Who is that kid? Are those men hurting him? A few soccer players stepped away from their post-game chat, eyes wide with confusion. They recognized Adrian as Toby's older brother, but none had seen him fight before. Toby, trembling, watched from behind a nearby picnic table, gripping the edges of the bench. He wanted to help, but part of him was also mesmerized by Adrian's calm control. The biker leader attacked again, this time aiming a vicious punch toward Adrian's abdomen. Adrian blocked, guiding the man's arm away. With a sudden shift in momentum, Adrian delivered a quick strike to the biker's solar plexus. The man gasped, doubling over. "Enough," Adrian's voice rang out, echoing in the stunned silence of the park. He stood upright, chest heaving, but his expression remained composed. "Walk away. I don't want to hurt you." For a moment, the bikers hesitated. Their leader grunted, cursing under his breath. One biker lay on the ground, nursing an injured leg, another clutched his ribs. The leader's gaze flickered from Adrian to the small crowd of parents and children who had witnessed everything. With ill grace, the biker leader gestured for his companions to follow. "Let's get out of here," he snarled, casting Adrian a venomous glare. As they mounted their motorcycles, he turned back one last time. "This isn't over, kid. You'll regret this." The engines roared as the group sped off, leaving a swirl of dust and tension behind them. Adrian inhaled deeply, trying to steady his heartbeat. Slowly, the bystanders in the park broke into applause, some out of relief, others out of admiration. Toby rushed toward his brother, tears brimming in his eyes. "Adrian, are you okay?" Toby asked, voice quivering. Adrian managed a small smile. "I'm fine," he assured him. "Let's get home." A few parents hurried over, offering words of gratitude and concern. One father placed a hand on Adrian's shoulder, telling him how brave he was. Adrian thanked them politely, eager to leave before the adrenaline wore off and the full weight of what had just happened sank in. The walk home felt longer than usual, even though it was just a few blocks. Toby kept glancing up at Adrian with wide-eyed awe. Adrian could practically see the questions forming in his younger brother's mind. "Adrian, how did you do all that?" Toby finally blurted once they reached a quieter side street. "You were like something out of a movie." "It's not about being a superhero," Adrian said gently, ruffling Toby's hair. "It's about self-defense. I've been taking classes for years, remember?" Toby nodded. "Yeah, but I never knew you were this good." Adrian paused, letting out a slow breath. "I just wanted to keep you safe. That's the point of learning to defend yourself, to protect, not to start fights." Toby's eyes flickered with concern. "He said it wasn't over," he whispered. "What if they come back?" Adrian exhaled, remembering the biker leader's parting words. He didn't want to dismiss Toby's fear, yet he also wanted to reassure him. "If they do, we'll deal with it. But let's not dwell on that right now. We'll stay cautious. You did the right thing by telling them to leave me alone." Toby's shoulders relaxed a little. "You weren't scared at all, were you?" A soft chuckle escaped Adrian's lips. "I was nervous," he admitted. "But sometimes, doing the right thing means pushing past that." They arrived at the modest house they shared with their mom, Ms. West, who was already on the porch, arms folded in a posture of anxiety. She greeted them with a mixture of relief and concern. "You're late," she said, her eyes darting from Toby to Adrian. "Is everything okay?" Adrian shot a glance at Toby. They both knew they couldn't hide the truth. "Some men tried to cause trouble in the park," Adrian explained, carefully choosing his words. "They singled me out. Tried to start a fight. I didn't have a choice but to defend myself." Ms. West's eyes widened. "Defend yourself how?" she pressed. Adrian gave her a brief rundown of what had happened, leaving out some of the more harrowing details, like the biker's final threat. He didn't want to alarm her. Even so, Ms. West inhaled sharply, clearly shaken. "I'm proud of you for protecting Toby," she said, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "But I need you to promise me you'll always look for a way out before you resort to fighting." Adrian nodded, his gaze earnest. "I promise, Mom." Toby piped up, "He was so fast, Mom. You should have seen it." Ms. West mustered a gentle smile, ruffling Toby's hair. "I'm just glad both of you made it home safely. Why don't you change out of that suit, Adrian? It must be uncomfortable." Adrian smiled, relieved that she wasn't too upset. But he also sensed her lingering worry. That night, long after Toby had drifted off to sleep, Adrian lay awake in his small room, replaying the events. The biker's parting words still echoed, "This isn't over, kid." He tried to let it go, reminding himself that fear should not guide his choices. Yet caution was another matter. A few days passed uneventfully. Adrian and Toby returned to their normal routines: school, homework, practices at Northcrest Park. Adrian's classmates asked endless questions about rumors they'd heard. "Did you really take down 3 grown men? Are you some kind of martial arts champion?" Adrian deflected most of these inquiries, unwilling to relish in the confrontation. One Thursday afternoon, Adrian found himself again at Northcrest Park, waiting for Toby. This time, he was dressed in more typical teenager attire, jeans and a hoodie. The memory of the altercation lingered in the back of his mind, though he tried to focus on the present. He had barely settled on a bench near the soccer field and a familiar rumble made his pulse quicken. Motorcycles. Adrian's heart pounded as he recognized the same group pulling into the lot at the park's far edge. As he stood, ready to make sure Toby was safe, he spotted something surprising: the bikers didn't come toward him. They dismounted, talking among themselves in hushed tones. One of them seemed visibly upset, pacing back and forth. The others crowded around him, gesturing as though they were trying to calm him down. Adrian stayed vigilant. He noted that the stocky leader was absent. Instead, there was a wiry man with a ponytail who seemed to be taking charge. Could this be a coincidence? Toby, done with practice, jogged over. "Adrian, are those?" "Yeah," Adrian replied quietly. "Same group, minus their leader." Toby glanced up with concern. "Should we leave?" Adrian considered it. But something else piqued his curiosity. These men seemed agitated, but not hostile in his direction. After a moment's hesitation, Adrian nodded. "Let's go," he said. "No point in staying around if there's trouble." They walked toward the opposite exit. Adrian kept Toby on his right side, ensuring they both remained out of view from the bikers as long as possible. But just as they were nearing the park's boundary, a voice called out, "Hey!" Adrian froze, heart drumming in his chest. He turned around slowly to see the biker with the ponytail striding toward him. 2 of the others hung back by their motorcycles. "We're not here to fight," the man said, raising his hands in a conciliatory gesture. Toby hovered behind Adrian, peeking around him. Adrian's voice was wary. "Then what do you want?" The biker exhaled, a hint of frustration in his posture. "It's about our friend. He got in trouble after your little run-in last week," he admitted, scuffing his boot against the ground. "Turns out, picking random fights at a public park drew the attention of the cops. Our leader's been stirring up too much heat lately." Adrian's tension lessened slightly, but he didn't drop his guard. "Okay." The man sighed. "We heard you're skilled. Didn't realize that at first. Some of us wanted to see if you'd talk, maybe help us figure out how to dial things down. Our friend's on a short fuse, but we don't all want to keep picking fights." Toby cast Adrian a puzzled look. Adrian himself struggled to process what he was hearing. A group of bikers who'd initially tried to bully him was now seeking a conversation. "I'm not here to negotiate anything," Adrian said firmly. "I just want to keep my brother safe." "You got no reason to trust us," the biker admitted, his tone resigned. "But if you see our leader again, maybe keep your distance. He's got a personal grudge now. That's all I can say." Adrian studied the man's eyes. He saw equal parts regret and trepidation. Finally, Adrian nodded curtly. "Appreciate the warning." The man returned to his group, and Adrian hurried Toby out of the park. The entire exchange left him feeling uneasy, but maybe a bit more hopeful. Not everyone in that group wanted to cause mayhem, it seemed. That evening, Toby couldn't stop bringing it up. Why would they warn us if they were part of the same gang? Adrian shrugged. Sometimes people get involved in things that spiral out of control. Maybe they're realizing that bullying and violence aren't the answers. Their mother listened quietly as the boys recounted the odd encounter. She nodded gravely. It goes to show you never really know what's going on beneath the surface. Everyone's capable of change, or at least thinking about it. Adrian reflected on the principle his karate instructor always emphasized: true martial arts is about self-improvement, respect, and living in harmony, not looking for conflict. His confrontation with the bikers and subsequent warning from some of them proved how messy real life could be, and how important it was to stay level-headed. As days turned into weeks, the tension with the biker gang gradually faded. Adrian never did see their leader again, though he remained cautious each time he visited Northcrest Park. Whenever a motorcycle passed in the distance, Toby would give Adrian a quick glance, and Adrian would nod calmly, a silent promise that they'd be okay. But neither brother forgot the profound lesson they had learned together: standing up for what's right often requires courage, discipline, and the willingness to remain calm under pressure. Adrian also discovered that kindness and understanding can sometimes come from unexpected places, like a would-be enemy turned reluctant ally. Word of Adrian's encounter spread around Oakview High School. Some friends idolized him, treating him like an action star. Others asked for self-defense lessons. Adrian handled it all with humility. Instead of bragging, he stressed the importance of only using such skills to protect oneself or others. Every so often, Toby would whisper, "You really are a hero, you know," and Adrian would shake his head, smiling. "Not a hero," he'd insist. "Just your big brother." For their mom, relief mingled with pride. She saw that her sons were growing stronger, not just physically, but morally. Adrian's willingness to intervene for Toby underscored the bond they shared. Meanwhile, Toby gained a deeper appreciation for the values that Adrian and their late father had instilled in him: respect, compassion, and the courage to do the right thing. The memory of that evening in Northcrest Park stayed with Adrian in quieter moments, like a whisper in his subconscious, reminding him that real strength doesn't always show itself in loud displays or flashy moves. Real strength is the ability to act when necessary, guided by conscience rather than ego. In the end, Adrian's story is more than just a tale of a teenager who knew how to fight. It's a testament to the power of poise and purpose, the kind of composure that arises from discipline, from hours spent learning not just the physical aspect of self-defense but the mental aspect as well. In an unexpected twist, the same group that threatened him also provided a glimpse of human complexity. Not everyone is wholly good or wholly bad. Some regrets lead to revelations. Some people are simply stuck in circumstances they can't control. And sometimes, a simple show of courage prompts others to pause and reconsider the path they're on. Ask yourself, how would you handle a moment when your safety or the safety of someone you love is at stake? Would you remember to stay calm and rely on the lessons life has given you? Or would panic overwhelm you? These questions matter because life will invariably throw challenges our way. The real test is how we respond. Adrian's example shows us that a strong spirit, coupled with respect and discipline, can steer us through those tense situations. More often than not, it's about knowing your own worth, caring for those around you, and refusing to let fear or intimidation determine the outcome. Here at Motivation for Success, we celebrate stories like Adrian's because they remind us that deep down, all of us have the capacity for bravery. Sometimes it shows up in small ways: a quiet word of caution, a refusal to let someone else be bullied, or the decision to speak up even when our voice shakes. If this story resonates with you, consider how you might stand up for yourself or someone else. Think about the times you let fear or doubt hold you back from doing the right thing. Let Adrian's calm confidence inspire you to cultivate inner strength, and to recognize that empathy often lurks behind the roughest exterior. We encourage you to leave your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to stand up for yourself or someone else? What helped you find the courage to act? Thank you for joining us on this journey of courage and self-discovery. If Adrian's story moved you, share it with a friend who might need a reminder of their own inner strength. Also, be sure to subscribe to our channel, because at Motivation for Success, we bring you more stories that warm your heart and challenge your perspective.